Last one I'll mention is on July 4th, 1798, Yale president Timothy Dwight preached a sermon in which he calculated the year in accord with the vials of Revelation 16 in scrupulous detail, the last of which has, quote, been in operation more than 100 years. And then he offers a detailed defense of his calculations. Quote, look through the history of your country. You will find scarcely less glorious and wonderful proofs of divine protection and deliverance uniformly administered through every period of our existence as a people than shown to the people of Israel and Egypt in the wilderness and in Canaan.
Wow.
Wow.
Progress is everywhere afoot. Jews given citizenship in Prussia, Austrians embracing the Sabbath, England, Scotland, Germany.
Well, there you go, right there.
England, Scotland, Germany, and the United States sending missionaries throughout the world, and measures enlarging for putting an end to the African slavery, which will, within a moderate period, bring it to an end. Islam is being pushed back, and Catholic countries are being judged by various calamities. Talk about, you say this all the time, Kim, reading the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other.
Boy. Well, and Timothy Dwight's forefather there, Jonathan Edwards, had set a date of 1866 for the Lord to return. So it's in the genes there.
This has been going for a long time.
It's been going for a long time.
We've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, this is nothing new.
And by the way, if the end of slavery is the proof of God's favor upon America, how about the initiation of slavery by the same people? What does that say?
Well, and these guys, of course, didn't foresee the American Civil War either.
Yeah. Of course, after Charles Finney, this doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
He said the church is just a moral reform society. Right. So we're heirs today. Whatever is being done on the evangelical left and the evangelical right today, they're both heir to this legacy, not only of Charles Finney, but before Charles Finney, the legacy of people who claim to be in Reformation traditions who couldn't distinguish the two kingdoms.
The error, as you point out, Mike, is not in the identification of the persecutor. They get that right. That in the case of Rome, you have the Pope and the Prince in league to be able to send armies to attack and kill and repress those preaching the gospel. I mean, that's why the Reformers identified the papacy as Antichrist, because they saw all the signs, and the signs were present, only it wasn't in the providence of God the time for the final revelation of the end.
But where in the book of Revelation do you get, before Christ returns, the saints mounting a campaign against the beast?
Where you get the error is the identification with the United States as the national charter of the Holy Land, as opposed to all those references to the persecutor in Scripture are referring to the persecution of God's people as the church, not as a nation.
Right.
And they're martyred.
And they're martyred, exactly.
Now, to return to the issue that I raised earlier, as you mentioned, the responsibility to do justice, to rule and govern in a just manner. Obviously, it would be great if you had Christians who have a Christian worldview that, not in the name of the church, but in the name of the state, occupied those positions as judges or as president or governor.
I'm not
or whatever.
even sure of that anymore.
No, well, I agree, but in principle,
Right.
if a person understood the Scriptures in a proper way, it would be good if you had Christians in those
It's a
positions.
doctrine of vocation.
But here's the problem: most Christians think you have you have to be a Christian. In other words, if you are not a Christian, then therefore somehow, if your worldview is different, then you are not qualified to rule or to govern or to be a judge, and that's where it's problematic.
Well, when Luther said, if I have to choose between a Christian who doesn't get justice and a Jew who does, I'm going to elect the Jew.
Well,
I mean, he threw it right out there on the table.
Well, it would be the same the distinction for us would be, will you swear to preserve, defend, and uphold the Constitution? That's what's required for somebody serving in the city of man.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether they're a pagan, whether they're a secularist,
That's
whether they're
right.
a Muslim, whether they're a Jew, or whether they're an evangelical Christian. On the one, as a minister of the gospel, I swear allegiance to the Reformed faith, which summarizes the Scripture. That's my charter as a minister of the gospel. As a citizen, I don't take an oath to swear and uphold the Constitution because I'm not called to a civic vocation.
Right.
But as a voter,
Sure.
I vote for people who do, and I don't vote for people who don't.
Right.
Does that help? Is that
Yeah.
Well, it does, but what we hear from Christian radio programs, talk shows, and publications around election time is that you begin with the person's religious conviction. So if a person has no religious affiliation, most of the time in Christian media, they are vilified simply because of their lack of church affiliation or Christian profession.
This is because people think that the point of the Bible is to give us a blueprint for every aspect of life. I'm getting so tired of this Christian worldview stuff.
Yes.
You know, the Bible does not give us a Christian view of everything.
Right.
The Bible gives us a Christian outlook on life. Yes, a Christian outlook on more than the atonement. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
We see things in the light of the age to come. Yes, all of that.
Yes, yes.
But it doesn't give us anything concrete about policy on foreign diplomacy.
There's no Christian view of states' rights versus federalism.
Right. In fact, here's what you find. You don't find a blueprint that the evangelical left or evangelical right could draw on. Here's what you find. Jesus famously declaring, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's." Paul echoes, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God." The secular officer, he says, does not bear the sword in vain, but is in fact a minister of God in that secular sphere.
And he's speaking of Rome, the Roman Empire that had already persecuted and killed Christians.
Yeah.
"Render, therefore," says Paul, "to all their due, taxes to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor." And he goes on and says, you know, here's how you need to live in the last days. Oh, okay, good. Here, this is going to be the blueprint.
Yeah. Here it comes.
And he says, mind your own business.
Work with your hands.
Work well with your hands so that you may win the respect of outsiders and have something to give to those in need.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, you may go now.
Yeah, right.
Peter does the same thing.
Yeah,
he says,
Peter does
how
also.
should you live in these last days?
Yeah.
Well, by being submissive to those who have rule over you.
Yeah.